Okay, so here we are. We've got both cleaned halves of the crankcase ready to go. All the edges are done. I've test fit these to make sure they line up like they should, and there's not any gaps or anything that I missed as far as high spots or burrs that would cause a problem. I've got a new crankshaft seal kit here ready to go. So two of these double up on this end, I think, and then there's two seals down here, or one seal down here, and a steel bit that lives on the crank. Yep. And I've got the crank down here, still new in his bag. So cut that open. Make sure he's got some oil on him everywhere he needs to have oil on him. I'll go ahead and I've got a brand new tube of 1211. So I probably got that number wrong before. I said 1240 something, 12 something. It's 1211 Permabond. Probably go ahead and put some of that in this crescent for that seal, as well as this one. Obviously those match up when it's flipped over, and this on both ends as well. So basically I'm going to put just enough to get a little squish out in these, because I'll actually come back after everything's bolted down and run a bead around the outside edge of both exposed seals. The big deal here is you want to make sure that the engine is airtight, right? So any leaks via these seals lets air come in during the intake cycle, and that leans out the mixture. And anytime you lean out the mixture on these two-strokes, these old two-strokes, you're just asking for death. Piston burned down, followed by death. That's the reason this engine's being rebuilt. Okay, so I've got this clamp arrangement set up. These jugs, I only need two to get it up off of the bench so that the piston arms have some place to hang while I'm bolting all this up. It just makes life easier. Got these clamped down. Just be careful that when you clamp down, if you follow this arrangement, you're not so far in that your C-clamp is, or whatever you use, is bearing on any of these faces. You don't want it touching any of these faces, and you don't want it touching the innards, particularly on the inside of the case, because if it does, you're going to get a burr, and that's going to really instantly tank your piston arrangement, since those tolerances are very tight. So clamped here. This will all be undone and redone once I flip it over after I get this portion of it done. And then we'll drop pistons and whatnot in. But for right now, the plan is to just seal this edge with the Permabond. These gaps are cuts for the seals with Permabond. Not this face, but these crescents as well for both of the seals. Get the seal kit properly set up on the crank. Drop the crank into position. Make sure everything squishes at least a little bit like I want it to. Then we will apply thread locker to all the bolts that are going in here. The spec lists these under the Fuji's as 8 and 10 millimeter, but what they're talking about really is this diameter, not the bolt head size, so don't get confused there. We'll be starting at about 10 foot-pounds, I think, on the wrench, because they want these to go to 16 for the smaller ones, and 26 for these larger ones that are on the end. These two guys, these on each end, which are for where the seals are. And that'll probably be it for today. So I'm going to put the camera back on the mount, and you can probably watch this in high speed. Oh, we've got the, also got the crankcase tightening pattern right here where I can get at it. Most of the time, when you do these sorts of things, you're just starting with the inner stuff. So you're really usually just doing a cross pattern. So you'll see it starts right in the most center one, the othermost center one, and then basically it goes out from there in a essentially spiraling pattern with the pattern getting larger until you're done. It's pretty universal. I wouldn't say it's always the case, but it's the best bet if you don't know what the pattern is. I'll mention for the astute that on the crank I had forgotten to get the bushing that lives on the PTO side off the old crank. And the one that was on the crank I had in front of me, my old crank I had in front of me, is not in the best of shape. It's pretty grooved in here. So I took my box apart, my shipping box to SPT apart, and stole a much better one off that crank. That's not really stealing. They're supposed to take that off before you ship it back. All right, so I got seals on that guy, and I'm going to start putting on the Permabond, and then we'll put it together. Don't know. Maybe. Alright, the line's fucked up from that. Needs a little more.
Get you anything, my love?
Okay.